Libya in 1986, Iraq in 2002, Syria in 2014. The United States has reshaped the Middle East more times than most people can count. Regime changes, airstrikes, ground invasions, Washington has done it all. But there is one country that has sat at the center of American and Israeli crosshairs for decades and still hasn't fallen. That country is Iran.
And the crazy part? This isn't new. For the last 600 years, not a single foreign power has managed to hold on to Iranian soil. Not the Romans, not the Arabs, not the Ottoman Turks, not the Russian Empire, not even the British, who at their peak controlled a quarter of the entire globe. So what exactly makes Iran so impossible to crack? Today, we're breaking it all down. Here's the first thing you need to understand about Iran. Geography did the heavy lifting. Forget walls and fences. Iran's real border is made of mountains, deserts, and sea. To the south and southwest, the Zagros mountain range stretches across the country like a natural firewall. Thousands of feet high, brutal terrain, nearly impossible to move large armies through. As you push northwest toward Turkey, those same mountains become even more extreme, creating what military planners call an impossible border. Where the mountains thin out near Iraq, you get swamps. The area where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers meet is one of the most difficult marshland territories on Earth, a natural moat that would slow any ground invasion to a crawl. Head north toward Azerbaijan and the Caspian Sea, and you run straight into the Alborz mountain range, another natural wall. Move east toward Afghanistan and Pakistan, and a series of smaller but still brutal mountain chains wrap around Iran like a ribbon. And to the south? The Persian Gulf, Iran's final defensive line. If you tried to invade from the water, you'd hit coastline backed by mountains rising up to 5,000 feet, stretching 150 miles inland. Good luck with that logistics chain. This is why historians compare Iran to Afghanistan, another mountain fortress that broke the Soviet Union, humbled NATO, and sent every invading army home with nothing to show for it. It's not just the edges of Iran that are brutal. The inside is no picnic either. Iran has two massive deserts at its core, the Dasht-i Kavir and the Dasht-i Lut. These aren't your Hollywood sand dunes. These are some of the most hostile, barren landscapes on the planet. Temperatures in the Dasht-i Lut have been recorded as the hottest surface temperatures ever measured on Earth. Because of this, Iran's population, nearly 90 million people, is concentrated in the mountain highlands ringing the interior, meaning any invading army that makes it past the border still has to navigate through mountains, extreme temperatures, and a population spread out across difficult, high-altitude terrain. Military strategists call this strategic depth, and Iran has it in abundance. The deeper you push into Iran, the longer your supply lines get. The more fuel you burn, the more soldiers you lose to the terrain before a single shot is fired. And Iran's major cities, Tehran, Isfahan, Mashhad, sit deep inside the country, not near the borders. You'd be exhausted before you even got close. Now here's where things get really interesting for the global economy. Picture the Persian Gulf. The entire northern coastline, from one end to the other, belongs to Iran alone. The southern side is split between 7 countries: Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman. And all of that Gulf traffic has to squeeze through one narrow exit point, the Strait of Hormuz. Iran sits on the northern side of this choke point in a V-shaped formation, giving it natural control from 3 angles. The opposing side, Oman's narrow strip, is pointed, boxed in by mountain passes, and extends barely 30 miles into the strait. What does that mean in practice? Iran can shut down the Strait of Hormuz almost at will, and the consequences would be devastating. Roughly 20% of the world's oil flows through Hormuz. Qatar ships 90% of its liquefied natural gas through it. In total, about $6 trillion in global economic activity depends on that strait staying open. Closing it wouldn't just hurt Gulf states. It would trigger a worldwide economic shockwave instantly. This is Iran's trump card. Attack Iran, and the entire global economy feels the pain. Iran's coastline adds another layer to this puzzle. Its total perimeter stretches nearly 5,400 miles, with over 1,700 miles of that being coastline along the Caspian Sea and the Persian Gulf. But unlike most countries where the coast gives way to flat, accessible land, Iran's coastline immediately backs into mountains and cliffs. Hidden inside those rocky formations are missile batteries, underground tunnels, and fortified positions that satellites and drones often can't even detect. Any naval force that tried to land troops on Iran's shores would immediately face an ambush from elevated terrain above them. It's not a beach landing, it's a death trap. Here's the part that most Western analysts completely miss. Iran isn't ethnically uniform. It's home to Persians, Azeris, Kurds, Arabs, Baloch, Turkmen, and dozens of other groups, each with their own language, traditions, and centuries of internal rivalry. On a normal day, these groups argue, protest, and push back against the government in Tehran. In fact, protests that erupted in late 2025 have been described as the biggest internal unrest since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, with thousands of casualties and no end in sight. So you might think, isn't Iran vulnerable from the inside? Here's the twist. The moment a foreign army shows up, all of that internal division disappears. History proves it. In September 1980, Saddam Hussein looked at post-revolution Iran and saw chaos. The military had been purged, the government was new. He thought he could sweep in, grab oil-rich territory, and be home in weeks. Instead, he got 8 years of war. Within 2 years, Iran had pushed Iraqi forces back to the border. And here's the remarkable part. It wasn't just the military that fought back. Ordinary Iranian civilians picked up weapons. Kurds who had grievances with Tehran. Arabs who Saddam thought would defect to his side. They all united under one identity: Iranian. Saddam lost over 1 million soldiers and walked away with 0 inches of Iranian territory. This is the pattern that repeats throughout history. 95% of Iranians are Shia Muslim, and when the homeland is threatened, that shared identity becomes a mobilizing force that no outside power has ever successfully broken. President Trump himself has acknowledged this reality, repeatedly calling on the Iranian people to overthrow their own government. Because even Washington knows, you cannot conquer Iran from the outside. The only way in is through the people themselves. Iran isn't just hard to invade. It's arguably the most naturally defended nation on Earth. Mountains on every border, an impassable interior, a global economic choke point it can shut down at will, a hidden, fortified coastline, and a population that, despite deep internal divisions, closes ranks the moment a foreign boot hits their soil. For 600 years, empires that ruled the world couldn't hold this country, and right now, as American and Israeli pressure continues to mount, Iran is betting that geography, history, and 90 million people are still enough to keep the streak alive. So far, the streak is intact. If this video gave you a new perspective on Iran, drop a comment below. And if you want to understand the Middle East like never before, hit subscribe. We're just getting started.